What's up, Seattle Sports Nation? It is Jackson Marshall here for the Seattle Sports Soup. Today is Friday, May 10th, and this is our Monthly Brew podcast. Lots of big news in today's Seattle sports news, and we're going to start off with the Sonics. Chris Hansen, the news came out today that he increased his bid for the Sacramento Kings. On the 65% that they had bid before, he added $65 million to increase his bid from $341 million to $406 million. That increases the total evaluation by $100 million, brings it up to $625 million, which the 520
pocket change.
It seems like nothing. It seems like pocket change for him apparently if he's throwing out $75 million like it's nothing. But like I was gonna say, the $525 million original evaluation would already have been an NBA record, I believe, for an evaluation of a franchise, and now it's up $100 million even more.
They're tied with the Heat for the sixth most valuable franchise in the league if it
goes
much.
through. So obviously, Hansen's, like he said, when the first news came out that the committee voted against us, Hansen told all Seattle that he was not gonna end it there. He's gonna keep going, and he really came out and talked the talk and then walked the walk after that by increasing the bid by that much. And while $65 million and $100 million on the total evaluation, some question whether that will actually be able to have an impact, because David Stern has always said that it's not going to come down to a bidding war. I've heard multiple people say, including Darren Rovell, who's ESPN's financial expert, that $75 million, it's a pretty substantial amount, and it definitely could have an impact, especially on the financial committee and on all the committees and the board of governors as well, who they could potentially reconsider the decision.
Yeah. So I think the news that's come out like the past couple of weeks from Mitch Levy that Sacramento has been hiring like a firm to find more investors for the purchase of the Kings, I think that's a little bit sketchy. I mean, the Seattle has all the investors already set. I mean, of course, increased by $100 million today. So I mean, I don't know why the relocation committee had to vote against the move to Seattle, but I can see how Sacramento's done everything they can, but the funding behind it is just a little bit sketchy.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense that they would have to at least reconsider or at least think about it, because beforehand the financials all seem to point towards Seattle. When the relocation committee voted against relocation, it was already clear that Sacramento's bid was slightly less than ours, and now that we increased it by $100 million on the total evaluation, we're gonna have over $100 million higher than their evaluation of the team. So all the owners are obviously gonna love the potential sale to Hansen in the group, because it just makes their franchises worth more. The Maloofs have consistently said
7 of them or 12 of them already voted no for relocation.
Yeah, but
I mean,
with a $700 million more evaluation,
dude, I don't know.
The owners, the NBA has consistently proven that all they want is money, and so
yeah, but they proved here that
that's Stern.
Sacramento
I'm telling you, that's
did
Stern.
what they wanted.
Stern
That
is the guy behind it all. Stern is the guy behind it all.
Still
He
made
is
a
the
recommendation.
devil working behind the whole thing. All the owners, if this sale goes through,
This won't change anything with Stern though.
if this goes through, it makes the Kings tied for what you say, the sixth highest value of a franchise, and they're one of the bottom 5 teams in the NBA. That makes teams like the Celtics, the Lakers,
Stern
the Heat,
doesn't
all those
care.
teams skyrocket in value. The owners love a move like this because it makes their teams worth so much more. The 76ers were just recently sold this offseason for $256 million, I believe. That could easily be flipped for over $500 now.
200.
Exactly. Now, if the Kings get sold for over $600 million, imagine the value of how much it increases for all the other owners. I'm not saying that it's gonna make
guaranteed revenue sharing.
Exactly.
With this plan that Hansen's.
I'm not saying that it's gonna necessarily bring the team back, but I'm saying that they have to at least consider the new offer.
Well, the NBA said they weren't giving a statement for,
which I think is
the
ridiculous.
Increase of the bid, because that's Stern's organization right there.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because next week is already the week for the vote for the Board of Governors. So we will see what their vote is on the sale this next upcoming week.
It's just a recommendation that the relocation committee said. So they're still have to vote on the relocation, not the sale.
Right.
Relocation first. They have to vote. So
yeah, and so I definitely think because it was just a recommendation by the relocation committee, I don't see how they can at least. I definitely don't think it'll be unanimous
and
now.
they didn't put the money in for the escrow, or did they?
No, they didn't.
Wow.
So the Kings' financials are obviously way less than Hanson's group right now, and Kevin Johnson, he made a statement today.
Too much.
Whenever
we do something good, he just starts trying to sound all tough and strong.
Exactly.
I'm tired of it.
In his statement today, he was talking about how
shut up and do work.
He's really confident. He's still very confident about their situation because Stern has consistently said it won't be a bidding war. And I mean, that's what he has to say. He has to say they're still going to be confident. And right now, I mean, with the way Stern has made everything happen, I don't know. He is confident because, I mean, that's the way it's been pointing towards the Kings all along. But with the vote coming up next week, definitely stay tuned because it's obviously going to be a big decision with the vote. And I think it seems right now with Sacramento still trying to scramble to get more investors that we are definitely going to have the better offer by the time the vote comes around. So I definitely expect it to be a much closer vote for both the relocation and the sale. So stay tuned. As I said, the vote is next week. And I think that's all we got for the Sonics and Chris Hansen.
All right, so now we're moving on to the Seahawks. They just recently completed their draft, drafted 11 players, various positions. Of course, surprising everyone as the norm is these days for the Seahawks. But I think their picks were justified for sure. And we'll list some of our favorite picks and the overall offseason analysis and kind of a recap.
Yeah, and so I think one of the bigger surprises for the draft was the fact that they drafted 2 running backs, considering we still have Marshawn Lynch and Robert Turbin, obviously the departure of Leon Washington in this offseason. But I think part of that is just the forward thinking by Schneider and Carroll, because Lynch is only under contract for a few more seasons.
2015,
I believe, 2 more seasons. We also drafted 2 defensive tackles, a defensive end, a couple offensive linemen, wide receiver, and a tight end, Luke Wilson, who is an intriguing pick because Zach Miller was supposed to be one of the most explosive tight ends that we signed in the offseason a few years ago, and he's been good, but he hasn't really
showed up in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, he really did, which was really good sign to see. Hopefully, him and Wilson will get a better chemistry going forward.
I think McCoy stays on the team with Luke Wilson getting drafted.
McCoy is not a very good blocker. And
they released Fells, though, that basketball player.
Yeah, I don't see him making much of an impact going in anyways.
They have that. They have the rookie minicamp today, actually, which they brought in 75
the first day
players,
of the 3-day minicamp.
But they're working them out, see if they can get any steals like Doug Baldwin a couple of years ago.
Exactly.
Anything like that. So, who's your favorite draft pick out of the 11?
My favorite pick out of the 11, there are a couple guys I really like. A guy like Luke Wilson, Jordan Hill is obviously a good one. But my favorite is Christine Michael. He was the first pick they took with the first pick the Hawks had. It was number 62 overall. It was in the 30th pick in the second round. But if you haven't watched any tape on this guy, you really should because he is absolutely a beast. He's from Texas A&M. He's 5'10", 220. He is a load out there, and he absolutely runs over people. I think that I don't think they're going to re-sign Lynch in a few years because I don't think they're going to have the money considering how many other people are going to have to pay like Wilson and Sherman and Thomas. And so I think Christine Michael is actually the guy who's going to take over the starting job. And I don't think you really even lose any physicality because the identity of the Hawks offense right now is that physicality that Lynch brings. And I think Christine Michael is almost just as physical as Lynch.
The identity of the Seahawks offense is slowly changing.
It is changing, but I think that if in crunch time, Lynch is the guy, and that ground and pound style, and I think
in clutch time, I think Wilson's the guy.
Okay, obviously I love Wilson just as much as the next guy, but I mean, if you can pound the ball with Lynch, making the situation, obviously,
if you're up,
but making the defense tired throughout the whole game with those strong legs, so you can still be strong in the end, is a really big thing for the offense, and I think Christine Michael is a similar style runner. Robert Turbin is a great backup, and he's fast and he's strong too. But Michael brings that physicality that I really love. So I don't know. He was just definitely my favorite draft pick this year. What about you? Who was your favorite?
I think my favorite, I have to go with Jesse Williams, the 6'3", 323 defensive tackle out of Alabama, originally from Australia, actually. So with the move from Alabama to Seattle, he gets to be closer to his homeland. But I mean, he shows the raw ability. I think he's very athletic for his size. Very strong. He benched 600 pounds once, a couple times at Alabama. He's a crazy guy. Good athlete. He's a freak of an athlete. Got the tattoos everywhere, like yellow down the side by his ear. But I think he'll make a good impact, and he'll fit it right into the rotation with Brandon Mebane. And I think him and Mebane should shore up that defensive tackle problem. They should help. I don't think Jesse Williams will not only help the run stopping, but I think he'll get some pass rush too.
Yeah, and he was actually the second defensive tackle taken by the Hawks. Jordan Hill was taken in the 3rd round from Penn State. He's a slightly smaller, 6'1", 303 pounds, not much smaller, obviously. They also drafted Jared Smith, who's a defensive tackle from New Hampshire. So obviously they wanted to bolster the interior of that line, and the line overall, obviously, with the additions of Averill and Bennett in the offseason. I do think these draft picks are going to have to come in and at least try to make an impact, because it was just recently released that Greg Scruggs tore his ACL and had surgery.
I don't think he's going to be a huge contributor.
I don't think he's going to be a huge contributor either, but he did contribute this past season, and so I think these guys coming in are definitely going to be potentially thrust into a bigger role than expected.
And the Hawks signed 7 of their 11 draft picks today. I don't think Christine Michael signed yet.
I don't think he is either, but I'm not too worried. Yeah.
And then Thurl Simon and Spencer Ware, something like that.
Yeah, Spencer Ware is an intriguing pick because he's a really big running back, and a lot of people are saying that he could potentially be the successor to real Mike Robb and play fullback. And I think that's probably going to happen because Mike Robb's getting a little older and his contract's up in a few years.
I want that real Robb report, though.
I know, that stuff's really great. I definitely don't want to see that leave, but it is pretty logical. Would be pretty logical to see Spencer Ware take over that position. He's always played tailback, so we'll see whether he actually has the chops to do it. But that's going to be an interesting thing to look at coming into this season.
I think he said he was up to it, too. He'd do whatever
they asked him about it.
The team.
Yeah, which is a really good sign to see.
Especially from a guy out of LSU.
Yeah, who have been known to have some character issues out of LSU. And so, overall, I mean, I really think the Hawks had one of the better drafts. I mean, it's hard to judge now. 3 years is the standard, before you can really, truly judge the draft. But after the first look, comparatively, I think they did a really good job. And plus, their free agent signings and trades with Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett, and Percy Harvin gives them, in my opinion, the best offseason overall out of all the teams.
So 12 executives were polled anonymously, and asking about which team had the most talented roster in the NFL. And 10 of the picks were San Francisco, which I don't agree with, and 2 were Seattle.
I think it's the consensus is, though, that those are the two by leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the league. Those seem to be the two that people
think they pulled reporters in Seattle won or something. So I mean, that's really interesting to see. And on NFL.com they have the predict the season thing, and the Seahawks are in the Super Bowl right now against the Broncos. So make sure to go vote for the Seahawks.
So we'll see. The Seahawks offseason is off to a good start, in my opinion. We'll keep you guys updated on how that all goes and how minicamp goes and how the offseason continues. And I think we're going to move on to everyone's favorite, the toss-up section. Okay, so for our first toss-up, actually we're going to stay with the Seahawks theme a little bit. Who do you think is going to be the backup running back this year, Christine Michael or Robert Turbin?
I got to go with Kristen Michael right here. I think he's just proven himself at Texas A&M. If he can hit the holes hard, quickly, he's powerful. I mean, Turbin's shown that he had flashes last year and was great, but I think Kristen Michael is even better at catching the ball out of the backfield than Turbin is. I remember the Turbin drop against the 49ers. Yeah, that would have been a touchdown. But, yeah, I think Kristen Michael with an impressive camp and impressive preseason, he can look to secure that backup spot and start if Marshawn gets injured.
As I said, Michael was my favorite of the Hawks draft picks this season, so I think he'll definitely be able to make an impact this year. But for a backup role, I think you're looking for a kind of change of pace guy. And I think Michael's very similar to Lynch. So I think there is a chance that Turbin could retain that job
Turbin's
because
big too.
yeah, but he's got that wheels. He's still a different
Michael's
back.
quick too.
He's got a different back. They're different
the
style.
same.
There's a different style. I like Michael more, but I think it's not set in stone yet, and I think Turbin has a chance to retain the job. So we will see about that one as the season begins and progresses. Next one, toss up. Who's having a better season so far, Felix or Hisashi Iwakuma? This one is a little bit, probably give the notion to Felix, but the numbers are actually more similar than you'd think. Felix has had one more start than Iwakuma, so just keep that in mind. But he is 5-2 with it compared to Iwakuma's 3-1. His Ks per 9 innings is 8.59 compared to Iwakuma's 8.46. His strike to walk ratio is 7-1, which is actually second in the American League. Iwakuma edges him on the WHIP, 0.76 to 0.9. Felix edged him slightly on the ERA, 1.53 to 1.61. So I think the numbers still slightly point to Felix, and I give the nod to him. But I think the fact that we can actually even have this conversation and that this could actually be a debate at all really goes to prove what a great season Iwakuma is having. Because I think people expect him to be good after the way he closed out last season, but no one really expected him to be this good.
Yeah, I gotta go with Felix as well here. I mean, Felix has just proven himself this year, and even with no run support, he's still 5-2, right? 5-2.
Felix is 5-2, yeah.
5-2. And I mean that's pretty impressive. I mean he's winning one-run games. He's making it possible for the Mariners to win any games since their hitting is just terrible.
Yeah,
like the usual story. But yeah, I think Felix. I mean Iwakuma has been impressive, like Jackson said. The fact that we're even having this debate is really awesome to see. It's kind of the 1-2 punch that Pineda and Felix would have been, and I think Kuma is obviously better than Pineda right now since Pineda isn't in the league.
Yeah, and I think Felix is actually has a chance to get even more wins as the season progresses. Look for an article that I am going to write soon about how his games have all been super close and how just with the tip of the scales a little bit, the offense a little better, he could actually win even more games. So our next toss-up is who do you think is having a better season so far hitting-wise? Michael Saunders or Kyle Seager? Marshall?
I got to go with Saunders because even though Saunders has been injured, I think the time he's been playing, he's been excellent. I mean, Seager's caught some fire lately, which is really, not surprising. I mean, he's the leading hitter last year, obviously, but I think Saunders, when healthy, so far when Saunders has been healthy, he's the better hitter this year. But in general, if I was taking them on one game basis, I would go with Seager.
Yeah,
on a one game basis.
I'm a huge Michael Saunders fan. I think when he plays, the lineup is completely different. I think he makes a huge difference in the outfield as well. But I think that their numbers are pretty similar. Seager's got slightly more RBIs, but he's also played more games. And I think that Saunders really brings a different element to the team because they don't really have a top of the lineup guy. He's not really a conventional leadoff guy, but he's a really good leadoff guy for the team. So I think I'm definitely a huge Michael Saunders fan, and I would take him over Seager. Our final toss-up for the day is who's having a better season so far, and who do you predict will have a better season as the season progresses, Kendrys Morales or Jason Bay? While most people would immediately react and say, oh, Morales is having a much better season than Bay, you'd actually be surprised to know they have the same amount of home runs. Morales only has a few more RBIs and only has a slightly better average. Well, he's played in like 6 or 7 more games than Jason Bay. So really the numbers are pretty similar, and on a per-game basis, Jason Bay is actually averaging more home runs than RBIs. So I think it actually is an interesting question. Marshall, who do you think?
I gotta go with Jason Bay because I think I don't know. I feel like Bay is able to sustain the whole season, be able to sustain his power and his skills and hitting and all that the whole season. While Morales is I don't think Morales is that much of an athlete. Bay's a way better athlete, and I think Bay will be able to sustain better stats than Morales. Couldn't get that out of my mouth.
Well, I have a soft spot for Jason Bay because he used to be on the Red Sox. He had a monster season on the Red Sox, over 30 homers and over 100 RBIs. But I think that maybe Bay's had a slightly better season to this point. But going forward, I actually think Kendrys Morales is the guy because he has proven more recently to be a consistently good hitter. And he's really shown that he can get the average and the power, while Bay has really not been that good of a hitter recently. So I think Morales, going forward at least, is the guy.
Alrighty. So I think that's it for the toss-up section, and we will be moving on to some Mariners talk.
So like Marshall said, we're going to continue with the Mariners news. Currently, they are 3 games under 500 at 16-19. And tonight, they start a 3-game series with the A's with Iwakuma on the mound tonight. So hopefully they can win another series. They've been playing a little better recently and won a few series in a row, which is good to see. But they still can't really hit. And when the season started,
like usual,
they were actually around the middle of the pack. But recently, they've sort of fallen back to the norm for the Mariners and are second to last in the American League in both average and runs scored. So they're regressing again, which is really tough to see, considering this was supposed to be a different type of year for the team offensively. But the pitching has kind of held it together, and they've scored enough runs recently to win a few series in a row, which is good to see. What do you think about the series coming up and the season so far, Marshall?
I think the Mariners are going to be a streaky team all year, and they've already proven that. They're 15-19 or 16-19. They're just going to be really streaky all year. They've already shown that by. They started off all right with the A's. Hit the rough patch, and then had another great streak where Seager was on fire. Had like a 10-game hitting streak or something like that, and now they're hitting that rough patch again. So I think this Oakland A's series could be where they start that upswing again, and really can get some momentum going into the middle part of May and maybe even June.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with what you said about how they're going to be a streaky team. Hopefully,
you get a chance to win 2 out of every 5 days. A really good chance to win
with Felix and Iwakuma. Absolutely.
And if Saunders is at home at Safeco, you got a really good chance.
That's true. Joe Saunders pitched great at Safeco. He's really pitched horrendously away from Safeco. But some guys that I'd really like to see pick it up are like Ackley's improved recently. But Smoke has shown signs he had a little hit streak there going for a few games, and if he can just keep that a little bit consistently, he's raised his average a little bit, but it's still not where we'd like. And Michael Morse, he started out really hot, and he still leads the team in home runs by a lot. He has 9 home runs, but he only has 14 RBIs. How can you have 9 home runs, only 14 RBIs? That's obviously
home runs?
obviously not enough guys getting on in front of him.
Solo homers?
But he needs to
not hitting homers at the
his
right
average
time?
his average has dropped down to like 220 or 230, something like that.
Yeah, he started off hot. I don't think the finger injury did any good for him.
No, I think he really started. It was a pinky. He really started to slump.
Oh, pinky. Okay, Morse. 5 and a pinky hurts.
Yeah, he's really starting to slump after that.
That's the Mariners' mindset.
Which is no good.
You can't play if you have a hurt pinky. That's why they're so good. But, maybe Hansen should buy the Mariners and bring.
I've actually heard a few people
suggest baseball
that,
team,
and I think that would be fantastic. Get some better ownership. But let's play a little game here, Marshall. Why would you take a guess? How many people on the Mariners are batting under 200? What's your guess?
10.
10? It's not that many. Not that bad. Only 3 guys who have played real minutes, or real games have batting under 200. But that's still way too many. No team should have 3 guys
25
batting under 200, which is way below where we need the team to be at this point. It's horrendous. Hopefully by our next podcast we can have
40?
less than that. But 40 guys.
40-man roster.
40 guys batting under 200. Yeah, no, not quite that bad. But obviously 3 guys batting under 200 is just way too many for a team to succeed offensively, and hopefully they can pick it up. Stay tuned for what's going on with the Mariners. We will definitely keep you guys updated, and I think we're gonna move on to some minor Husky news and talk about the NBA playoffs as well. In basketball news, Mike Moser, who was thought to be going to UW when he decided to transfer from UNLV, actually reports are out. Nothing is official yet, but the report is that he has actually chosen Oregon, his hometown Oregon. Yeah, he said he chose. So obviously, nothing's been signed yet, but he said he chose Oregon. He was from Portland, so I guess it's not a real surprise that he went back to his home state. But it's tough news to hear for Husky fans.
Jeff Goodman from CBS really amped it up that he's going to Washington.
When
that destroyed all Huskies.
His report.
But shout out to Jason McCleary who called it all from the start from the Nike Hoop Summit in Portland. He was talking to some sources down there and always said Moser was going to Oregon. So.
Yeah, in Goodman's initial report in early April, he had a quote from a source that said it was almost done. It made it seem like it was a virtual certainty he was going to UW, which obviously was not the case. So that's a tough break. But I still think the Husky basketball team has a chance to be a lot better than this past season. Has a chance to potentially make some noise. Especially with C.J. Wilcox coming back.
They got a new assistant coach, T.J. Altenberger from Iowa State. He's a really good recruiter. Has really had some success at Iowa State, and there is more news on the horizon. So make sure to watch out for that.
Yep, and so I think that's all we got for the Huskies currently. But for Huskies that have graduated or have moved on, Nate Robinson having a really good playoffs for the Bulls. He's leading them, led them to a first-round win, and led them to a Game 1 win over the Heat. That series is now tied after they got walloped by 37 in Game 2. But hopefully he can continue the good play back in Chicago and get them a win tonight. They play at the Heat relatively soon, actually. Their game tips off.
If they face the Knicks, they're screwed, though.
Oh, Marshall. Yeah, the Knicks aren't going anywhere. They're going to get whooped by the Pacers. And so now that we finished from our Huskies, we're going to get some quick talk about the NBA playoffs since we are both so very into it. Our last podcast, we made our predictions. Who are some teams that could surprise people Me and Marshall said
Golden
the
State.
Grizzlies. Marshall's obviously switched to the Golden State Warriors, which our buddy Joey Calabro
Klay Thompson,
picked the Warriors.
Steph Curry.
Yep, Thompson and Curry, the Splash
Klay
Bros.
Thompson has a babe of a girlfriend.
Yeah, Marshall's
just putting that out there.
His mind
it's
over
crazy.
here. But those guys are obviously really fun to watch. They've been playing
How
well.
does a cougar get that hot of a girlfriend?
That's a really good question, actually. I don't know. But I am a huge Grizzlies fan and a Warriors fan as well, so I really hope those series are both 1-1. The Warriors play tonight. I hope we can see a Grizzlies-Warriors Western Conference Finals because they're first of all, they're conflicting styles.
That'd be awesome.
Big men oriented for the Grizzlies, guard oriented for the Warriors. But I love both those teams, so it's really good to see. And in the Eastern Conference, both of those series are at 1-1 as well. The Heat are taking on the Bulls tonight, and the Pacers are back in Indiana to take on the Knicks. Marshall, as the big of a Knicks fan he is, seems to think the Knicks are going to dominate. But I don't see that happening. I think the Pacers are wicked tough at home, and the fact that they...
Amari's coming back, baby.
Yeah, so that's a big debate we've been having. I think Amari is actually going to make them worse. I think whenever Amari plays for them, he makes
6'10".
No, he is... Honestly,
can shoot the J, got the moves, rebounds.
He is a horrible rebounder, and he's one of the worst defensive power forwards
in the league.
How many years ago? 8?
I'm just kidding.
Gosh, he is one of the worst defensive big men in the whole league.
No, he's not the worst. He swats so many shots.
Okay, just because you can get a high block number doesn't make you a good defensive player. He's horrible at rotations. He honestly makes their team significantly worse on defense.
Where'd you get this from, Grantland?
No, I didn't get it from Grantland. Although Grantland, great website, great article on Steph Curry and his improvement by Zach Lowe, one of the greatest out there. So another debate me and Marshall have been having is talking about the NBA playoffs. Which is the best sports playoffs between the MLB, NBA, NHL, NFL, any sports playoffs really? What do you think? I personally think the NBA playoffs are the best. So many games. First of all, the NFL you got to wait till the weekend to watch the games. But
that makes it so thrilling.
But last week, there were 4 Game 6s on one night in round 1. It's just so exciting. So many teams, so many guys rise to the challenge and step up. Set stars in the making like Steph Curry. So I think NBA is definitely the best playoffs.
I say NFL because you have to lay it all on the line. One game, can't leave anything on the field. The situation so intense. You can't mess up or make any mistakes. I mean, you have to perform. In the NBA playoffs, you always got a next game. You can do whatever.
But it's just so exciting.
It takes a month to finish the playoffs.
Oh my goodness. Give it a rest. So we'd like to hear what you guys think. For all of y'all who's listening, just let us know on Twitter what you guys think, what the best playoff system is. And now it is time for our end of the show shout-outs. Marshall, who you got?
My shout-out goes to Brandon Roy. He's
my shout-out over here.
He's retiring. Well,
the Timberwolves. You don't even know what you're talking about. The Timberwolves released him today, which is probably going to be the end of his career because it is.
I got shout out to the Jamal Crawford Pro-Am.
You got to hear
Jamal Crawford Pro-Am. You got to check that out this summer. Lots of good skill.
Well, my original shout out was going to be Brandon Roy before Marshall stole it, but I will switch it to the Boston Bruins. My boys taking a 3-1 lead in the series, commanding lead. They're probably going to move on. Patrice Bergeron, all those guys, Krejci. They're going to move on to the Eastern Conference Finals soon. Don't you worry. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. You know the deal.
Like us on Twitter.
Thanks for listening.
Is it baby? I never